today's lesson, we're going to continue on with our throw and get it in between and finessed and finished. And we'll also go into the render comp, and we will add the ball actually leaving his hand and flying off the screen. So we'll complete our simple little scene here. So let's just remind ourselves where we were at and have a look at a RAM preview here. And you can see that the keys are looking pretty good. We've even got a little sense of timing in there. But I have to say, as I look at this, and this happens to me a lot, and it's not a bad idea to build your key test as we did in the previous lesson, and then actually take a break. And now this course has sort of forced us to take that break. But I mean, even just go get lunch, or even just go take a walk, or just go do something else for a little bit, and then come back and look at your key test again. And this gets back to that point I made in the first webinar about how you get very close to the animation because you're, touching and finessing every little part, and you're focusing on all the tech, and that intimacy, as we've said, is misleading. So taking a little break and then coming back and kind of trying to put yourself in the place of a fresh audience looking at it. Sometimes you'll see things that you didn't see when you were kind of lost in the game building it. So as I sit and look at this, my feeling is that my anticipation pose is a little too far forward. He's not leaning back quite enough, and so we're not getting quite as strong a contrast as he comes forward and throws that ball. So I think it's just a very small adjustment, but before we start tweening, let's make that adjustment, because once again, this is the time to do it. Now is the time to make these adjustments when things are nice and clean and orderly, and I don't have to worry about this affecting other parts of the animation or other parts of the movement. Once we start pulling out keyframes and offsetting things and adjusting motion graphs, then making an adjustment like this can be potentially troublesome. Right now, it's not going to hurt a damn thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lean him back a little, and then we're just going to kind of adjust his weight. And then I might pull that arm back a little bit too. Yeah, that's better. Now he's got a little more of, and it doesn't even feel like I have to, pull him forward that much. His weight still seems pretty good. I might just creep him forward a little bit here and just see how that looks. That looks a little better. Yeah. Go back even further. And at a time like this, there's something to be said for just pushing it all the way. We can always come back. But that's still looking pretty good to me. I'm going to grab the 3 hands and the cog here, and we'll just creep him forward again to get that weight centered just a little bit better again. But now we've got all that lean and all that contrast. We're creating a big contrast between this anticipation and what's going to come. And you can see that that's stronger now. Boom. And this one now feels like we can push this one a little bit. So this is a good thing to do. And like I said, there's something to be said for getting away from the animation, even if it's just for 10 minutes. But again, make it the, kind of get that key test built end of the day, and then go home or whatever, and then come back and look at it and reappraise it. It's just a really good time to do that because you haven't committed to all the work of the in-betweening. Okay, and I'm going to stretch this out maybe a little bit more, which kind of throws this balance off a little. So let's just scooch him forward a little bit more. Oops, I'm not getting this one. It's not coming. There we go. Sometimes the nudge doesn't seem to grab them all. Click and drag seems to work a little better there. That's one I can't entirely explain. Okay. All right, let's RAM preview this now and see if it's got a little better, a little stronger feeling. Yeah. Energy is definitely, we've really picked up the energy. Boom. Okay, good. Now again, that was the time to make that adjustment, not later on. So if you want to, even now, stop and pause and take a look at where you're at, maybe make some adjustments, push the poses a little bit, look for potential problems, then move forward. You want to do that now before we start into the craziness we're about to get into. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with the craziness. So I'm going to start at the beginning here. We've got nice kind of slow movements here from our starting pose to our second starting pose, and then into our first big key pose, the anticipation here. So I'm just going to do easy ease out, easy eases through here. So an easy ease out here. We'll do a regular easy ease here. We'll do an easy ease on this pose as well, on both sides again. And now this one, we're going to give an auto Bezier or continuous velocity. And then easy ease again. Now this is just the, this is just the preliminary rough timing here. We're definitely going to spend some time in the motion graph editor, giving this the final finessing. But this will get us started. If we were to RAM preview this right now, we're honestly just going to have a mess. But let's just have a look just so you guys can kind of see the stages here. So you can see obviously the arm is doing some crazy stuff. And that's obviously mostly because we don't have the right motion path. So we'll get to that in a little bit. Let's focus on the feet, as I said, and work our way up. So the feet aren't going to take a whole lot, but we do have some of the same issues that we would have in a step, because really he's taking a step forward. Let's just kind of walk through the feet here, starting with the right foot, the front foot here. And we're obviously okay through this section. We start to get some weird rotation values happening right here. The foot should be staying on the ground all the way through here. So this should all be just a 0 value. So I can, and it doesn't pick up off the ground until after this key pose. It's flat on the ground all the way to here. So I can actually just remove these keyframes and put a hold right there, and then that'll just lock that foot rotation down at 0, so that's all clean right through there. Okay. Rest of this is looking fine. Now what we do want to do is add some curvature to this movement so it's just a little softer and more natural. So let's give this a nice kind of, we don't want that to kick back too far. So maybe a nice natural curvature there. Great. That looks much better. It's not even going through the floor or anything there. That's all looking good. All right, so let's go to the back foot, the left foot, and see how that's doing. This one lifts up off the ground right there, but we're not getting any weird rotation values in there, so that's good. So it comes up, and then forward, and then flat on the ground. Now here we might want to get that thing coming flat on the ground a little bit quicker, because again his weight is coming forward here, and it seems awkward that so much weight is on this foot when it's up on the heel. And this is really similar to what we had with the walk. So I'm going to go a couple frames ahead here, and I'm going to get that foot and that toe rotation down on the ground right away. And so let's just lock that in there. And then now he just comes down and hits and carries through. And I can actually get rid of this one too, because that foot now just stays in place right to the end, and I can throw a hold there if I want to. Boom. Okay, and then the last thing here would be to adjust this motion path a little bit. So once again, I'm Command Option clicking to add the Bezier handles, and then we'll just pull that out and give that a nice little bit of curvature there. Okay, so the feet are looking nice. Let's just ram preview and just focus on the feet. Great. Looks much better having that foot come down a little sooner, doesn't it? You can feel that it really allows that weight to come forward. And the curvature in the movement makes those arcs, make those look quite a bit more natural. All right, so let's move on up to the upper body where we really have most of our work here, particularly in the arms. Now, this is again a situation like the run. It's a very fast movement that we have essentially built overlap and follow through into with our key poses. So we're not going to be doing a whole lot of offsetting here. It's going to be fairly minimal. Our really big concern is motion path and the IK orientation. Those are going to be the two things that we're going to be kind of focusing on the most. Let's get started with the most difficult motion path and the one that's the most critical, which is the throwing arm. And this is really the one that's giving us the most trouble now, and we're going to be spending the most time getting correct. So let's kind of analyze what has to happen, and then we'll go ahead and start shaping our path accordingly. So first off, the arm has to swing up and around. This will be easy, just a little bit of curvature up to there. But then the arm has to swing up and around back to here, and it's going to have to swing up quite a ways. So we're going to need a kind of big arcing movement. And the reason we want this to swing up quite a ways, if we kind of step through this now, is you can see we're getting this horrible IK jump here as the arm crosses over and it kicks that elbow up. And then we're getting the other pop when we jump from from one IK orientation to the other. So one of the first things we're going to have to do is curve this enough so that the arm actually goes straight or nearly straight at one point, so we can essentially hide or find a clean place to switch the IK orientation. So this is going to have to be a kind of a big bulbous curve here to curve this guy up and around and get it nearly straight when he settles back to here. Then of course it's going to be a big arcing forward as he throws the ball, and that one is going to be kind of should be starting here and needs to kind of carry through this key pose here and then loop around back to here. So we're going to be creating kind of an arc, something like this, and we'll have to experiment with how high to do it. We'll get into that sort of towards the end when we're doing kind of final tweaks and finesses. Timing is going to be really important. So we have to kind of work back and forth between timing and our motion paths. So we're going to adjust our motion paths kind of initially now, and then we're going to make some adjustments to timing with the motion graph editor. And then we're going to have to come back and possibly noodle with the motion paths a little more, possibly. But that often takes place, that an adjustment in timing makes the movement along the motion path shift, but it's kind of hard to get the timing right if you don't first have the motion paths at least close. So there isn't always like a really clean step 1, step 2, step 3, do this first, do this second, do this third. A lot of times you have to do some kind of bouncing back and forth and balancing between all of the different controllers and attributes that are at work. So let's go ahead and just get started with the first couple of curves here. They're going to be easy ones. The first one here is going to be relatively easy. So I'm just going to hold down Command Option and click and drag to pull out that little Bezier, and we'll just get a little bit of a of a soft curve coming up here. And then that looks nice. And then as we start to come up and over again, this is going to have to be pretty extreme. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a Bezier down here, but then I'm going to Command Option click again and break that handle there so we get a sharp angle here, and I can pull this curve up. And again, what I'm trying to do is I want to get that arm to basically go straight. So let's see if we get even close. All right, we're not quite there, but let's just kind of radically bend this here, and let's see. There we go. So he comes back and up. Maybe we don't even need to do it that much. And then let's go ahead and get him just a little straighter right there. We'll go ahead and get him straight. Now right there, watch, because I've got the arm straight, I can go ahead and take the IK orientation and I can slide it forward so it's actually switching right there. So now you can see I smoothly bend with the IK orientation this way up to straight, and now watch, now it smoothly animates back into that position. So let's go ahead and RAM preview that, and we should have nice smooth movement on that arm. Not coming forward, but just coming back. See that? So now it's coming back smoothly. We're getting a little bit of an awkward pop as that comes down. But maybe it would be better. Maybe the problem we're having. Oh, I see. I accidentally unbroke my path here. That's what happened. Okay, so we can go ahead and reset that. But the other thing I want to do is I'm going to try to straighten his hand out maybe more in here. So it straightens. And it may not be on the frame you're looking at. You know, notice how that curves way up. So there, it's straightening right there. So let's try moving that switch there and see if that's a little more natural. Yeah, I think so. It's just a little more of a natural curve. Great. Yeah, that feels a lot better. All right, so we've got the first part of this throw going pretty well. Now we need to deal with this issue here. That's obviously not the way we would want to throw something. Okay, I'm going to start by Command Option clicking, and we'll pull this one out. You can see that arm is starting to straighten out. Now we're going to grab this side. And there we can pretty much get the arm straight right there. That's going to be real close to where he's going to release the ball, probably just after that point. Now here we're getting lucky because the IK switch is actually happening at a pretty good spot right there. You can see that's not at all unsmooth, so we don't really have to worry about that. Great, this is all looking good. But we've got to switch it again down here. So here's where we want to switch it, is right where it gets straight right here. So let's just get it a little bit more straight. Let's just go ahead and push it all the way. And then once again, we're going to take our IK orientation and we're going to slide that forward. So now that just arcs around. You see how that transitions smoothly now from the IK orientation this way to the IK orientation this way. All right, let's take a look. That arm should be looking 100 times better. Now our timing isn't all there. We're not completely there yet. But boy, that's looking 100 times better. It's obviously a little slow, isn't it? A little bit slow. But you can feel the force. Boom. You can feel him really pushing that ball forward. All right, now this hand needs a lot more finessing. It's not dragging behind here. It's kind of curving ahead of itself too much. We're not getting that overlap and follow through feeling through here. So we have more work to do on that hand. But we don't want to do much more until we've got our timing working a little better. Even this backhand that's obviously still doing totally goofy things, that is less of a concern to me. Now that I have this front arm working and the legs working, I can kind of ignore that backhand and just focus on getting the timing right. And then we can go back and fix that front arm quite a bit better. But once we get the timing right, we'll be able to go in and get that arm all finessed. But if we try to finesse it now and then change our timing, it's going to be a lot harder. So I want to get this timing fixed while we still have a relatively simple situation here. But I wanted to go a little bit down the finessing path just so I could see what was happening at all, because before it was just a mess, right? So we're kind of going a couple steps forward, we're going to take a couple steps back, and then forge forward again. And honestly, this is real common. It's very rare that you're going to have like a really linear kind of a path for every animation. They're all going to be a little different, and they're all going to require kind of a slightly different sequence of events to get to work. So let's go ahead and take a look at the timing. One of the first things is, right at the beginning here, it's really not working because we don't have any time to read that pose before he goes into his anticipation. When he hits that point where he holds the ball and he's kind of looking out into the distance there, it just goes by in a flash because there's no, we don't stop, we just move right on to the next movement. So one of the things we need to do right away is we need to put a hold in. All right, and we want to make sure we have all of our attributes open anytime we're going to do any timing adjustment. If you just want to be safe, just close them all up and open them all up again, so you make sure you have all your attributes open before you do any crazy timing adjustments. So in order to put this hold in, we need to first add a little time here so he can go into this pose and then hold it and then continue on with the motion. Now, because we spent a little bit of time finessing this and we've got some Beziers and we've moved the IK orientation, I don't want to mess up anything that's happening here. So we're just going to move this whole mess, and I'm just going to open up the same equal space we have for the movements to start with, and we can adjust after that. So I'm going to click and drag the whole mess here, and we're going to bring it all forward. So we've now got some extra space here to work with, but we still have exactly the same animation that we just created. So now I'm going to go back to here, and now we're going to copy and paste this key pose backwards to here. So let's go ahead and do that step by step. And again, you want to make sure you're doing this on every controller layer. There we go. Now I'm going to grab that whole column of keyframes again, and I'm going to Command Option click to add a hold. Now that we've got the hold on there, now we can now we have him move into his position. He holds perfectly still. Now we could add a little motion or some eye blinks or something later if we wanted, but for right now we just want to start clean. Then he moves back into his throw. So let's take a look at how that looks, and I imagine right away it's going to feel quite a bit better. Oh, I just realized we need another hold right at the beginning. So let's add another hold right at the beginning, but that looks 100 times better. You can get that sense of him thinking a little bit, and we need a hold right here. So for this one, we really didn't do much between those, so I imagine I'm just going to pull this one back there, and we'll just jump forward and just copy and paste forward this time. Really shouldn't be a problem since we haven't done any real finessing, and besides, we're copying and pasting. That finessing forward should all work just fine, and then we'll once again go in and add a hold there. Okay. So we've expanded our timing quite a bit here. So let's pull that work area out and RAM preview and see what we got. Oh, that's much better. maybe a little slow. The whole thing's a little slow. So let's pick everything up a little bit. So let's start with that first hold. Let's shorten that a little. Let's shorten the movement into the kind of pre-pose. Let's shorten that hold. Actually, we should probably shorten the move even a little bit more. He's not really doing much there. There's no need to do that super slow. And again, I'm just sort of guesstimating for now. Now, I think that is working okay. I think we're going to finesse that more with the motion graph. And then this may still be too slow. I'm going to try speeding up our throw just a little bit, and it might wonk out some of these small adjustments we've made, but let's see what happens here. It won't be difficult to fix. I'm just taking one frame out. Oh, look, we're still getting a clean jump with the IK jumping right there. That works just fine, I think. Let's look at it at speed. Yeah, that looks way better. Oof. All right. Now I'm leaving this fairly long drift back because we're going to adjust the motion graph here. I might tighten this up just a couple of frames, but we're going to do a little more finessing here to give this just a little more of a good feeling, and then we're going to go in and do our final finessing, getting that hand to do just what we want, releasing the ball at the right time. All right, yeah, that's looking pretty good. Okay. All right, so let's take care of that kind of a little more finessing with the timing. And for this, we're going to need to go into the motion graph editor. There's a couple places where we want some real extreme ease here. And the first one is as we come back into this anticipation here, we want that to be just a little bit more extreme. And then coming out of this, we also want this to be quite a bit more extreme so that he speeds up more when he gets to here. And then finally, we want a lot of ease coming out of this pose, not coming in, but coming out. So he kind of hits this position and kind of floats and drifts back a little bit and then pulls back up into his final pose. So let's begin with the first one in the sequence, the anticipation pose, and let's add some ease coming, a little more ease coming in and out of that. Now I want to make sure that I select only standard position and rotation values, not the switches. Otherwise, After Effects will get crabby with us. We'll just grab all these. I just want to make sure that I'm not grabbing anything I shouldn't. Okay. And then now let's go ahead and open the motion graph editor. Make sure you're using the speed graph rather than the value graph. And then we'll hit the little magnifier there to bring that up. And then the first thing I want to do is hold down the shift key and click and drag and add, maybe quite a bit, maybe 60 or 70. So maybe we'll do about 67. Influence on that side. And then on this side here, we're going to add a little bit less because this is a pretty fast movement here, but we'll still maybe go to 60 or 65. Let's try that. Now let's adjust back. Let's just do a little RAM preview of that. Great, that feels much better. And that more extreme ease gives us, besides making the movement feel a little bit better, and a little more natural, but it also gives us time to read the pose a little more clearly. That anticipation pose becomes a lot easier to read because we get there quicker and move out of it a little bit slower. All right, that's looking pretty good. Okay. Let's go ahead and do the next one down the line here. And that is the ease coming out of this pose. So we like that we're hitting this pose fast and hard, but we want to really ease it out coming out the other way. So again, I want to only select regular position and rotation values here. And then we'll go back to our MGE here, and we'll pull out a bunch of influence here. Oops, I don't want the box. I'm going to add a lot, maybe 75. Let's see how that looks. Oop, a little too much. Yeah, it's snapping a little too much. Okay. Don't want it to snap back quite so much when he stands up. And you know, I think what we have to do is we have to actually slow that down so I can have more ease there. So what we need to do, we need to slow this down so that I have some room to ease this more. Let's ease it, let's slow it down quite a bit. And then let's go back and try to re-ease that. I'm going to go ahead and crank that back up. Let's see if we can get this to work. Oops. 75. Still might be too much. That's better. Whoosh. Yeah, it feels good to have him have that strong ease coming out of that pose. Still think he's standing up a little bit abruptly, so I'm just going to add maybe a couple more frames there. Cool. That's starting to feel natural. Whoosh. Great. Okay, that feels a lot better to me. All right. Now let's go in now and finish the finessing of that arm now that we have the timing working right. Now then we can do the back arm and kind of get things finished up. So pulling back out here so we can see everything we're doing. Let's look at what happens to this arm kind of all the way through, and we'll just kind of see if there's other places we can look at a little finessing. Here's a little spot here where we can do just a little bit of overlap and follow through. This hand is coming up. The other hand we can do this too when we get there. It's coming up into this position with the ball, but we can easily delay the rotation, maybe on both the fingers and the hand itself, and just let that drag back for a couple more frames. Should give us a nice little feeling there, and we'll do the same with the left hand, but maybe not as much. Maybe we'll do sort of like a little bit less on this one maybe. So it's maybe just, that one's two. Well, let's give this one more. Okay. And let's just have a look at that. Might be too much, but let's just see. Should give us a little bit of a sense of drag on those hands, a little overlap and follow through. Okay, here we go. Yeah, that's nice. And we might want to just sort of offset the whole back arm a little bit. Maybe that's part of the trick, is that we offset that by a frame so they don't even get to their final position at exactly the same time. Yeah, there we go. Just those little bits of offset do a lot to make things feel more natural. Okay, now let's look at the hand coming up and around here. Okay, this is okay, but I would like it to drag a little bit more. And we're getting a little bit of pop now on the IK. Our adjustments have changed our equation here a little bit. So now our IK is popping where it shouldn't. So our IK really needs to switch right here. So I'm just going to pop that forward a couple frames. There we go. Now we've cleaned that up. Okay. So by changing our timing, we changed where this arm went straight. But it was easy thing to fix. So again, I'd kind of like to let that hand drag forward a little bit. Let's see if I can do that from the previous keyframe value and the motion graph editor. Sometimes this is a way to get this done. No, there's really not enough value there to play with. Okay, so there's a case where the MGE is going to fail us. So instead, I'm going to go ahead and add a keyframe, and I'm just going to let this drag back a little bit. So we get that little, again, that little sense of kind of overlap. All right. Now, as that arm starts coming forward, we want it to also drag. And you can see, because of the way we have keyframed it, the keyframes, this key pose is kind of giving us that drag automatically. But it's not quite carrying through the way we would like in through here. I would like it to be still dragging substantially back. It's starting to come forward here before it's actually ready. So let's once again see if we can do this by adjusting the motion graph editor. There we go. Just add some influence there from the previous keyframe, and that'll let that guy drag back. Now we want it to kind of, as it comes through here, and here I'd also like to see if we can get the fingers to roll back a little. This might be something we don't have enough value for. We might have to add, nope, there's not enough movement there. I'd like to add one keyframe here to the fingers and let these fingers drag back a little bit. So they're starting, maybe that's too much, but it's starting to roll back on his fingers a little as it comes through, because that's part of the throw, is that, you know, the force is coming up through the arm and then is snapped forward by the fingers. In fact, I would say the ball is probably no longer in his hand right here. It's a pretty, yeah, so right between here and here is where the ball would actually leave his hand. So here we want, just like the arm is snapping forward, you can see that there, we want the fingers to snap forward here as well, and we want the ball to be gone. So we're going to take the ball on-off switch, slide that forward so the ball is gone. And let's once again see if we can do anything with the motion graph and get this, yeah, there we go, get this to curve forward much more quickly. And we can see if we can do the same here with the fingers. They're pretty close together there. There we go. So now we get this snap. It comes through. Oops, we've lost our drag back here though quite a bit. Let's see. Still want this to drag back more, so I need to add more there. There we go. Boom. Now it flips forward. We're fighting between these two values now. And I'll pull that forward more. And pull this one back more. It's a value war. Boom. I'm just going to have to keep cranking. I'm just going to really crank on both ends here. There we go. Drag, snap, and then come through. All right, let's see how that's looking. Snap. Yeah, nice. All right, and you can see we're getting a nice boom, a nice sense of force forward there. Great. Now we've got a couple little issues left to deal with on this arm. You can see we're getting a big bad IK snap right there at the end as he comes in to settle. So let's go back and take a look at that. This is another instance where we need to find the appropriate place to switch the IK, and boom, there it is right there where the arm goes straight. Easy. So now once again, we're going to grab that IK orientation, we're going to slide it all the way forward to here, and because the arm goes straight there, in fact it arcs out probably quite a bit too much right in here. Should maybe pull that down a little bit. Now I can't disturb this, so I'm going to break that handle. And let's just ease that back a little bit so it doesn't stretch out so much. But we still have that good spot to switch our IK there. And now as he comes back into position, but we're still going to get a pop. Because it isn't until he, well, actually it doesn't pop too much, but it's popping a little bit. We need to get this arm up. So we need to actually arc it this way. There we go. But we want to make sure we still have that moment where we can switch our IK. So let's see. Uh-oh, we've lost that now. Okay, so let's see if we can figure out a new place to switch the IK. As we come into this way. And then it's good that we're arcing up. That makes more sense. Oh gosh, but we need to get that arm, IK shifted even earlier. Maybe what we're going to have to do here is do a little bit of a snaky thing here. And we're going to have to add a little bit of an S-curve. Now, I don't usually get into stuff that's this fancy if I can help it. Usually I want nice, smooth curves. But in this case, I'm not sure if there's much of an option. This will allow it to swing forward. And if you look, I honestly don't even have to do it this much. All I need to do is just get that arm straight on one frame. Oops, kind of lost it. There we go. So, boom, there the arm goes straight. Now I can switch my IK. And then now I can let it curve up so it doesn't stretch out so much. There we go. And then we don't get that little pop at the end. So look at that little subtle little wave there. But I'll bet it'll work. Let's have a look and see how that arm finishes up now. Woof. Good. That's picking up a little too high, isn't it? It sort of feels a little weird. Getting the IK to switch, but now it feels a little wonky going up that high. So let's ease that off so it's just a little bit less. We still need it to come up just enough so that we don't get that wobble at the end. Yeah, see, we're still getting that big jump there. So I got to get in closer here. We got to really analyze this. Okay. We need to make it smooth without that big shift at the end. There, that looks better. There we go. That's better. Still a little bit wonky there. We're still getting a little bit of a funny kind of feeling that it's like two moves at once. Okay, I'm going to revise my theory and we're going to try going back. And again, I'm leaving some of this stuff in for you guys because I want you to see some of the process you have to go through to get some of this stuff to work. And maybe I'm just trying to overcomplicate this little guy and we just need to I know what we could do. We've got this super extreme ease here. What we could do is we could maybe pull it back a little bit on the arm. So the arm is maybe not quite so extreme. Oops. And maybe we need to ease it in a little bit more on the other side. Let's see. All right, it's better. Now, the whole ending is a little bit weird because we haven't added any offset or finessing to the ending. And we'll get to that. So it still feels a little bit robotic the way you just hits that position, but we're going to play around with that and make sure we get a little bit of offset at the ending there, and I think that'll clean that up pretty well. So let's go ahead and take a look at that back arm, and let's get that back arm working better. We know our timing is working pretty good, so we can be fairly confident here. So let's analyze what it does. So the first thing it's going to be doing is just rising up here. And so we maybe just need a little bit of arcing there as it arcs up. And then it's going to do this crazy twist thing where it starts with one IK orientation and switches to another. So we're going to need some curvature here because we're going to have to find a point where it goes straight where we can switch the IK, or at least a point in the movement where switching the IK is clean. And then it's going to kind of push down for the throw here, so that's probably going to arc out a little bit, or maybe arc in. And then it passes through to the back. That will probably have very little arc on it. And then here we'll definitely be arcing this so it arcs up and smoothly comes to rest in the kind of visor position. And we're going to have a couple of IK switches we're going to have to deal with. So let's go ahead and start through. The first one we can deal with here is the lift up. So let's start with this little curve here. We don't have to do a lot. I'm going to select the position value here. Command Option click and pull out a little Bezier and just give it a little bit of an arc forward here just to be natural. Okay. And then now as it comes out into the anticipation pose, this is where things are going to get a little trickier. Okay. And we need to get this IK to switch. It's currently switching right at the end of the pose, making a big pop right there. So let's look at how we could maybe get this arm to stretch out more. Maybe this should swing down and up, and that might do it. Yeah, let's try that. It's a little bit of a tricky move here, so I'm going to select that keyframe. And we're going to pull a Bezier out, and let's see if we get any, if we get it to go straight anywhere here. So I think what I'm going to have to do is angle that Bezier this way a lot. I think that's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to kind of curve out and back, I think. Let's see. Here now we can switch the IK now that we've got it straight. And this might look a little wonky, but let's see how it works. Okay. It actually works pretty darn clean. Yeah, nice. All right. So that's a great example of how to deal with a tricky IK pop there. We got a little lucky there. That honestly could have taken quite a bit more finessing, but that's looking pretty nice. So I basically just radically manipulated that curve so it just went a little past where we wanted to go and came back, almost like an overshoot, almost like an overlap, but that allowed us to get that elbow straight and get that to turn, and it actually feels really quite natural. Okay. This one's easy. This one's fine, just to let that IK switch right there. That's smooth. And then as it passes through the back, that's all fine. I don't think we have to do a lot there. Now, as we continue on, we've got a little tricky situation here that I didn't notice it first. I had to look at this a little more closely to really see it. But you'll notice here, even though the arm movement seems fairly smooth, it really kind of just smoothly comes into place there. This really isn't natural. If you think about it, nobody would be able to go from this position here where the arm is swung back in this direction and then be able to just twist their arm 360 degrees to here. So he's going to have to bring this arm all the way forward and then back up to his forehead. So we're probably going to need to add another keyframe here. We could try cranking away on this motion path, but this is a pretty extreme movement. So let's just go right in the middle of the motion here. And let's just grab this hand and just bring it on forward and not waste a lot of time with this. So we're basically, this is a good example again of a breakdown tween, because we're kind of right in the middle of this movement and we can't just let it happen automatically. We have to shape it a little bit so it becomes something a little more like a key pose, even though it's really just a tween in between these two other key poses. So we'll pose the hand, and maybe while we're here we'll even add a little bit, realizing we could add a little bit of overlap and follow through to this front arm too. But let's get this back arm working right, and we'll just add maybe one last bit of finesse to this front one. So let's go ahead and rotate this hand around. Now this is going to be another issue here, is that because we're rotating, doing all these rotations, my guess is this hand isn't gonna smoothly tween up to here, and I think we're gonna have to copy and paste this rotation forward. But let's do everything one thing at a time here. So as this hand comes through, we actually probably want it to drag. So I'm going to have both it and the fingers kind of drag back a little bit. Not a whole lot, but just a little as that's coming around and through. And maybe we'll, I don't want to make this too exaggerated. Okay, so I'm going to step forward a couple frames here just to get the controller off of the keyframes I want to work on to manipulate the motion path here. I'm going to Command Option click here to add my Bezier handles, and then I can go ahead and bend these out, and we can go ahead and give some curvature to this side too. I don't know if we need that much. Well, we'll see. We'll see how this looks. It probably needs a little more, but rather than crank on this, let's add some up here. So we'll have to break this guy. Just give a little gentle curve there, and then let's curve that down so that's a little more, just a nice soft curvature through there. Okay, and we're gonna want him to drag his hand quite a bit more. Let's make it a little more extreme here as well. But let's try to get there a little bit earlier. But I think with these particular values, you can see it's not really working. It's not going to really work to do a motion graph adjustment here. I think we're just going to have to add another keyframe. And again, I'm not crazy about adding a lot of extra keyframes, but just to get a little finessing on this hand quickly and easily, I don't think it's going to hurt anything to just push this a little bit. So when we're about here, I'm going to go ahead and bend this back. And then we'll let that carry through, and that should link right up to here. Now here we're in trouble because you can see it's looping around in a crazy way. We want it to continue to rotate around this way. So we're going to take a look, kind of eyeball this hand rotation, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste from this previous rotation value, copy and paste that forward, and then we're going to rotate in the direction we want this to animate, because remember, this is now this is now the same value that we had back over here when the hand was down here. So as this comes up, we want it to rotate clockwise. So we're going to go ahead and rotate this around clockwise and then return it to roughly the same kind of angle it was at before. And then now, as we animate through, it flips around the way we want it to. Whoop. Okay, let's go ahead and RAM preview and see how this is looking. Oh, notice how we're getting this weird little stick right there. That's because I forgot to adjust the interpolation here, particularly on the position value of the hand. We really need to turn this into a continuous velocity there. And really we should turn these all. Let's just take all these middle ones and just make all of these auto Bezier, and that should keep it from coming to a stop. So let's see if that smooths out that timing. It should. There we go. That's much better. Not getting that weird little pause right in there. All right, that's looking pretty good, and we're getting a nice little sense of overlap and follow through on that hand. That's looking really good. Okay, so let's look at just creating a little more of a finessed ending here. Right now we have everything stopping all at once, and we want to stagger some things and offset some things, partly to create some overlap and follow through, but also just to give him more of a natural sense of movement. So I'm going to go back a couple frames. One of the first things I want to do is get his foot here to come down sooner. I think I'm going to go about 4 frames back. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the reason is that this is kind of, he's kind of replacing this foot for his weight, and I kind of want that foot to be the first thing that goes down because it needs to support his weight. So this again will give us kind of a nice offset, kind of a nice overlap where he plants his weight and then kind of moves forward from that. And it'll also just kind of break up this ending and make it a little bit softer. So let's grab all the values for that right foot and just slide them all forward so he just comes down a little quicker. And then let's delay some things here. So to start with, let's delay this hand that we've been working on. And we've got maybe a nice opportunity for some additional overlap and follow through here. So I'm going to take the rotation of the fingers and the rotation of the hand itself, and I'm going to click and drag those back, and you can see how we're already getting that kind of overlap. And then I'm going to take the fingers and pull those back even a couple more frames. Now, we're not getting quite a nice bend back there, but let's just see what that looks like. And I know we don't have to RAM preview the whole thing, but it's such a short little part. It's such a short little bit. I'm just going to RAM preview the whole thing. There we go. Okay, it's a little extreme. I think I've got to tone that down a little bit. But you can see what we're getting there. We're getting that nice overlap on that hand. We just got to tone that down. We don't need so much. All right, that's working pretty good. All right, nice, and that kind of emphasizes that little hand there. I think the only thing I want to do, I want to see if I can get those fingers to bend back just a little bit more. So let's see if I can pull a little influence from this previous value. Yeah, there we go. Let's get those fingers to drag just a little teeny bit more. Let's see if that helped. Yeah, that's better, I think. Yeah. Okay, good. I might even just delay that finger just by 1 more frame there. And what's nice about it is by having that be sort of the last thing that moves, we sort of direct our eye to where he's looking, if that's kind of the last thing that comes into place there. And actually, now that I think about that, we should probably have the entire hand come to rest a couple frames later. So I'm going to grab all of the hand end keyframes there and just move them a couple more frames ahead. Let's make sure that that really is the last thing that moves. And we might want to delay, well, let's not. Let's keep the focus on this left hand. We might add a little delay on the head and neck too. We'll see. Yeah, I think we should do a little on the head and neck too. And then once again, that'll kind of bring our viewer's eye right into there. So I can see that his head doesn't rotate very much from this pose to here. So this, once again, we're not going to be able to do this with the motion graph. So I'm once again just going to add a little finessed tweening here. So right in the middle here, or roughly in the middle, I'm going to rotate the neck down just a little bit, and we're going to rotate the head down a little so we get a little bit of a drag there. And we'll make sure those are continuous velocity. So as he comes up, the head kind of drags a little. Let's make sure that isn't too extreme. Oh, that's maybe a little too extreme. Might have gone a little too far. Just a little bit. Okay. Just a tad more. Okay. And now that we have this value introduced here, now we can get a little bit of overlap by pulling these and delaying those a little bit. And you can see there his head's going forward a little. And we'll have the head do it last. And I think I am going to delay the hand and fingers here just a couple more. Let's see how that looks. Okay. And again, what we should kind of get is not only some nice overlap, but we should get kind of the sense that our attention will kind of flow up the chain here and finish with that hand, and the last thing we're really focused on is where he's looking. So even with our overlap and follow through and our finessing, we're thinking about story. We're thinking about a little bit of storytelling there. There we go. Nice, and that really draws the attention there to the head right at the end. And I like having the foot come down a little faster too. That feels really natural. And just by having those little things offset a little bit make a big difference. Well, I don't really think we have to do much with the front hand there, but it does look just a tad stiff as it comes back. So let's just do a teeny bit, and we'll go right into the middle here once again, and we'll just add a little bit of a overlap and follow through here on the fingers and the hand. And we'll just continuous velocity there and just let that come to rest where it did. Just give us a little more shaping there. Nice, yeah, just softens that just the tiniest bit. Boom. It's maybe a little extreme. Maybe tone it down a little bit. It's not that big a movement, so we don't want to oversell this too much. Certainly such a thing as too much overlap and follow through. And that the hand doesn't really, the arm and the hand don't really come to rest in a traditional kind of successive breaking of the joints. And that's okay. I really don't want our interest on that hand, so I'm okay with that just kind of coming into the pose clean and smooth like that. And I'd rather have the finessing where I want my audience looking up there on that hand and on that eye. Okay, cool. It's looking really nice. There's only one last thing that's kind of bugging me, and that's his eyes. I think as he throws into that pose right here, let's go back there. I think he's suddenly looking like he's looking down at the ground. I don't think he's looking where the ball is being thrown, and he suddenly feels unconscious here. And so I want you to just watch the RAM preview with me, and I want you to kind of look for what I saw, where there's sort of suddenly this sense where he's not in the moment anymore. He's suddenly kind of unconscious looking down at the ground, and he holds that pose for quite a while. So let's just make a tiny little adjustment here to the eye position, and let's just lift it and make him look a little more up and forward. Yeah. Now that looks a little funny, but I think it's still going to work to make him feel more conscious through the throw. Now watch him again, and I think you'll agree that he should look a little bit more conscious, a little bit more engaged all the way through. Yeah, that's a lot better. Boom. Yeah, okay. Cool. All right, I think we're in good shape. I'm just going to double check that. I went a little extreme with the height there. I'm just wondering if I can get the same effect. I kind of need that height. It's a subtle shift where all of a sudden he looks like he's looking down at the ground. I want to make sure he's looking after that ball. Boom. Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. I think we're ready to move to the render comp and take a look at adding the ball and finishing this up. So let's go ahead and switch to our standard view here. And we'll change over to the render comp. All right. Now the first thing we want to do is turn the ball on at the point where it leaves his hand, and we've already kind of determined that timing. So let's go ahead and click forward to there. Scrub forward rather. Oh, and I should let's change this to fast draft. That's why it's clunking a little bit. All right, and we'll scrub forward. And then right about here, we're pretty close. They're right there. Okay, so here's where we want the ball to appear, is right at that frame where it leaves his hand. Now I can take the ball and position it where we want it to be when it leaves his hand. Now what I would recommend doing here is taking a look at the last couple of keyframes and look at the kind of distances we're traveling from here to here to here. That's quite a jump. And as he throws it, I want to kind of be looking at this last jump, and I want to do about the same distance, maybe just a titch more. And I want to follow roughly the same trajectory. So I want that distance to be about just a little bit further than the previous distance. So from here to here, and then to here, it should be just a titch farther. Okay, might be a little bit high. Well, let's see. Let's try it and see. I want this to be fairly linear throw. Boom, boom. Okay, let's try that. So let's go ahead and open up our values with the U key here. And you can see we've made a couple of keyframes here, turning the ball on and moving it into position. Let's just go, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 frames ahead maybe. And I'm just guessing here. We're going to have to play around with the timing. And I'll click and drag that ball off screen. And I don't want to go too high once again. I want this to be fairly linear. Now, even though I added some extra controls for you guys, if you wanted to add some different things and play around with the ball throw a little bit, I'm not going to do anything with this. I'm just going to be keeping this super, super simple, and I'm just going to have it fly off the screen here. So we're not going to do anything fancy with this. So let's just quickly tween this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a regular keyframe, a regular diamond here, because I want this to leave quickly. I want it to just pop and move quickly. And then let's try an easy ease in. That might end up being a little too strong, but a little bit of ease in makes some sense here as it flies through the air. And it'll also hopefully soften the movement a little bit. So let's extend our work area here. Maybe we'll go to 5 seconds total. And let's have a little look and see. We're starting here at frame 10, where our movement begins. So make sure your work area starts at frame 10. And I'm having mine end at about 5 seconds here, and let's have a look. I think that's going to be too slow just from the RAM preview. Yeah, it's a little slow. It's real close though. Okay, let's try just bringing it in by maybe 2 frames. Well, let's try 1 frame. Let's just knock it down 1 frame at a time until we feel good about that timing. Well, that feels pretty good. Yeah, you could maybe make it a little faster. Let's try it 1 frame faster and see if that feels better. If not, we'll go back to that. Sometimes you just gotta play around with it a little bit and see what feels right. Yeah, that feels better to me. All right. Okay, the very last thing we should do, and I think we'll be done, is to just add a little bit of curvature to this motion path. Even though it's very short, I think just a little will still give us that little subtle feeling. So let's just give it as much as we can here. Again, there's not a lot of room there, but I think even just that little bit will feel real nice. So let's try that. Yep, subtle, but a nice little touch. Okay. All right, I think our throw is complete here. Now move on to the exercise video. Big shocker, you're going to be tweening your ball throw with Dolly. Get your details from the video and use your project file from the last lesson.